Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Phillips. I am the founder and principal application architect of decenthealth.io. And this is the first in a series of 6 videos describing the technical application architecture of decenthealth.io. Today's subject is bookends and the Permset Protocol. And so I'm going to start immediately with sharing my screen. I'm going to do pretty much of a classic whiteboard session today, so bear with me just a second. All right. I'll try and make this as simple as possible and as quick as possible. So let's get right to the point. So um, bookends.io. Bookends.io is the core of the identity service of decenthealth.io. Um, an org admin, a decent health org admin logs on to bookends. And you'll see that there's a couple of different ways. Well, 2 ways to log on. This way, the first way is for org admins only. It's for the organization layer. So org admin logs on to bookends.io. The org admin creates bookends. And in this particular case, bookends are members. So decenthealth.io is a member organization, which means that by being able to log on, you've created a member. Uh, so Decent Health Org Admin creates bookends. Um, bookends result when you create a bookend, it results in a perm set for you. Perm sets are really, I mean, this is a prefix right here, PS underscore, but then it's consisting of a 20 random number sort of phase, right? So um the the perm set is unique, it's yours. So for each member, for each bookend, so bookend is, I mean, it's going to be associated with your name. And each bookend is unique. It cannot use the same it cannot use the same ID handle. I'll talk about what an ID handle here is in a second. But that 20 number random sort of thing is unique to you, right? So bookends results in a perm set, and within the bookend, there's going to be some KYC information. There's going to be KYC information, so this could be, obviously your name, address, phone number, and so on and so forth, right? Email, obviously. Okay. But this is stuff that can tie back to you directly. So the point ultimately of Decent Health is that we're not going to be able to, no one's going to be able to use this information, this KYC information, to tie anything back to you. This is how we say that Decent Health is a context engine with your data. So let's talk about uh, so once you have that perm set, and uh, you're going to have to create an identity handle too. So if this is your original one, so there's this other website, register.bookends.io. Okay. Register.bookends.io is where you go to create your ID handle. if you haven't already created it. Okay. An ID handle could be anything. It could be, in my case, I'm using a test ID handle that I'm just calling Carl Sagan. So it's nothing. I happen to like Carl Sagan. And so uh, your ID handle could be Dragon Bob. It could be whatever you want to do it. I mean, some game that you used to play, make that your ID handle, right? So the thing is, ID handles have to be unique. So they are unique in the database. So once you have your identity handle, once you have your identity handle, the system will uh, assign that perm set to you. Okay. And this actually gets put in the database in the sort of way it looks in the database. And really, it's a data structure. And in this particular case, it's simply called book users. So there's going to be some information in that data structure, and it's going to have things like auth ID, zero ID. It's going to have things like uh, it's going to have things like all those perm sets. So it's going to have, perm set underscore, one, perm set underscore two, perm set underscore three, and so on and so forth. So the thing that is the really necessary part to know is this idea of each one of those perm sets is assigned to a URL. So, PS underscore one might be decent vote. PS underscore two might be, ASOT, Association for Solution Oriented Thought. PS underscore three, decent health. Okay. So each one of these things then is assigned to a URL. And then from the app's perspective, from Decent Health's app's perspective. So this is where I think of in terms of separation of who you are from what you are, what you are, or what you can do, or what you own. Okay. So on one level, you have KYC up here in the bookend. On the other level here, you have the application layer. And this is where the separation of who you are from what you can do. Okay? This is an important point. Okay, so now we're on the application layer, and so you log in as a member to decenthealth.io, log in as member. And ultimately what happens is when you log on, the system goes through a process where it brings up a screen where a login screen, and it basically asks you in this particular case, I haven't set it up for a passkey, but this is going to be a passkey, so you might not even see this for very long as if you have a passkey set up. But right now it's just and as far as testing goes, it's just going to be username and password. And the username in this case is that identity handle. It's not, it's okay. So the username and identity handle. So once it goes through that part of the login procedure, right? What it does is there's this automatic process called a post login trigger. And the post login trigger, this code does not exist in the Decent Health code at all. It's actually in the auth0 sort of site. It's a special bit of code, and what it does is it calls back to the back end of the MongoDB database of decent of bookends.io, calls to the back end of bookends.io, gets the information about the perm set that's been assigned to you, and then it returns it to Decent Health. Once that's done, then the system creates a JWT, a JavaScript web token, plus your perm set, whatever it is. Okay. And then what it does is it injects that PS into the JWT token, finally allowing you to log in. Okay. Once you log in, all right, you're logged in, and you're going to see the application layer. There's going to be some agents over here, some agents, and there's going to be a whole bunch of them. And I'll talk about those more in another video. So these are agents, and you're going to have ingestion mechanisms. So there's going to be like um, get your Epic records, Epic records, schedule labs, schedule labs, um, wearables, basically where whatever I can get, whatever I could get, right? So whatever, if there's APIs for wearables, I could see things like glucose monitors as well. Keep track of that. So that'll go right into the database as well. Glucose monitors, right? So once you're logged in, it's got all of these ingestion mechanisms. So whatever they are, ingestions, and it goes through it cleans it up. And I'll talk more about that in probably the next video. But the point I wanted to make here is that this is there's going to be a Neo4j database, basically 4J medical graph, medgraph DB. And so what happens is all this personal information, remember this is personal information, personal PHI, personal health information, so on and so forth, right? So within this thing, there's going to be user one and user two, user three, and so on and so forth. So your data is going to be embedded and chunked up and inserted in a certain form into, the database, right? Um, this is when you are logged on. What happens is it uses the JWT plus Permset scenario to encrypt and de-encrypt based on the login. On login. Based on who is logged in. So while user one is logged in, the data is de-encrypted. While user one is logged in, user one logged in, de-encrypted. While user two data is encrypted. It's heavily encrypted. It uses the JWT plus Permset for encryption and de-encryption. Encrypts. Okay. So while user one is logged in, you have access to the context to supply to the AI agents, and all the ingestions of your personal data become that context for the what is essentially the MedGemma AI model. And I'll talk more about that later at some point in time. So when you're logged in, user one, all of your personal data is de-encrypted and available to the agents to be used. But when you log out, it completely forgets about you. It has no idea. So those agents do not have access to any other additional information about you. So everything that goes into your part of, for example, the Neo4j MedGraph database, you are the one that controls it, right? Um, when you log on, it knows about you. When you log on, it knows you. When you log off, it forgets about you. When you log on, it knows you. When you log off, it forgets about you. So this brings us to an important point of scope. When I think about the difference, let's just do a typical OAuth sort of configuration versus versus a configuration of decent health, right? Um, it knows, for example, the scope of OAuth knows, who you are, basically, who you are. It knows your address. It knows your name. It knows a lot about you. When you use bookends, it doesn't, the login doesn't know who you are. It has no idea who you are. And your address and so on and so forth. It just knows about encrypted hashes. It doesn't know anything about you personally. So in other words, the comparison of anyone and well, I'll say this. So this OAuth and your personal information is tied directly to a database entry, a DB entry that that represents you and your PII. It's got all kinds of represents you. Okay. So that is a huge difference. I mean, just think about the consequences of that. So OAuth knows who you are, your address, your name, and bookings. When you log on at the application layer, it has no idea who you are. And so we're going to talk about the structure of, so let's just say in the database, the the structure of your personal, I'm going to call it a data structure. So within that thing, so in the MongoDB Atlas, there's going to be like a auth0 ID. There's going to be and what your identity handle is called. Okay. And then there's going to be that list of perm sets, you know, one, two, three. Okay. And each one of these perm sets is tied to a URL. URL, URL. Okay. And then when you log on, for example, to Decent Health, when you log on to Decent Health, the only thing that gets pulled down into the application is your perm set. There's no scope. So in other words, the application only information info from each bookings entry, only information from each book user's entry. And then only the information about the URL, and then only the info about the URL that you're logged in with. So this is ultimately how we separate who you are from what you can do. And the scope is very limited, and it uses encryption based on the injection of that JWT token and that perm set. It encrypts um, when you log off. It de-encrypt it and unencrypts when you log on, so that the agents know who you are. In this case, we built a whole history then of context for agents. I mean, ultimately, when we think about it, that's how I like to think about it. Context for AI agents, in this case, Medgemma. Context for AI agents uh, built with your PHI, your PHI personal health information that knows who you are when you log on, and forgets about you when you log off. Okay, guys, that ends the first technical architecture videos. Like I say, there's going to be 7 more. We're going to see how all this goes. Awesome. Thanks.